the school system.
But even when they're in school, there's a good chance they're on a screen every day.
Would you send your kids to this metaverse school?
All the 2,200 students are getting a laptop.
We have to do screen time 4 to 6 hours a day because all our curriculum is on a Chromebook or a laptop.
These kids just aren't tracking very well. Why? You know, we send them to their eye doctor to get their vision check, and they say, you're fine, you're 20/20.
If we have so many kids that are doing these new tasks that our body wasn't built for, would you think that everyone needs to get trained on accommodation and focusing?
You know, that's a deeply personal activity to register. This is how my body feels when I do this.
What do you notice between like someone who's an elite player versus someone who's more just an average player? What's the difference in these gaze tracking numbers and data?
Elite players are more quiet. You know, their eyes aren't darting all over the place. They have a visual approach.
What would you recommend as a best practice for these kids for long term for it not to affect their eyes? What would you recommend?
What separates elite from just average isn't just strength, it's vision, it's decisions, it's the brain actually behind the game. I'm Dr. Akash Shah, and this is NeuroVision Edge Podcast, where science meets elite performance. And each week, we'll sit down with the top minds in coaching, performance, and neuroscience to break down that invisible edge behind elite play. If you're a serious athlete, coach, or even parent looking for that competitive edge, this is your new playbook. Get real, practical, actionable insights that you can apply on the field, in the cage, or on the court today. NeuroVision Edge, where science meets elite performance. Are you ready to unlock your edge? Let's jump in.
We have a great guest today, Dr. Bailey. She's an optometrist from Dallas, Texas. She's the founder of the Sports Institute, Low Vision Institute, and the West Plano Dry Eye and Aesthetics Clinic. That's a handful, and that's a lot of different clinics, a lot of different specialties. So we're talking to someone really special today. So I don't want to take up too much of the word space here. So I'm going to let her talk. And I want to just start with a little bit of intro on how you got started with developing these different clinics and how you became so involved in so many different aspects of eye care.
Well, thank you for that introduction. And, you know, I was in family practice the first 15 years or so of my career, just did regular glasses and contacts. And, you know, the corporate surge of our industry took over our area as well. So we got bought out by private equity, and I worked there for a little while and left and had a non-compete to ride out. So I couldn't really use I couldn't do regular family eye care for a little while. And so I had a couple of choices. I could leave my radius, which is an eternity here in Dallas, or not work and, you know, be a full-time mom, which I strongly thought about, or do something different that was not within the scope of the of my non-compete. So at first, I started my dry eye clinic. That was the first one to start, and that's been really fun. Just helping people with having more technology, more tools in the toolkit to help with the dry eye. And we have a pretty holistic approach. All of my programs, the idea is to get as foundational as possible. So, you know, with dry eye, all of them, you know, gut health and stress and the spirit are foundational to your mind and your body. And so it's important that we touch on that and address it. But, you know, it's hard to get people to change. And so we, and those are all very personal choices. But I think it's important that we educate them on the importance of gut health and stress, on the inflammation in our bodies and our nervous system. And so all of the programs, we talk about gut health and the spirit. And
that's amazing. Nobody talks about that.
No.
Yeah, even from autism now, we're seeing gut health being so, so important and
Mhm.
developmental issues with gut health. It's amazing that you're starting from the foundation.
Well, and if we can get any of the patients, sports, dry eye, and the vision impaired, to change one thing, it's to get their gut healthier. And that's
Wow.
really
So that's huge. So you're saying one of the main things that if you had like a magic wand and you were going to fix, let's say, any athlete, you would start with the gut health. I know that that's that's overreaching, but do you
it's,
think that would make a huge benefit?
yes, it's a huge benefit. I don't know if I would call it a magic wand because that's outside my scope of practice, but I think it's important that they, if I just have a green powder that I recommend. I like that AG1 green powder a lot.
Hmm.
It's not universal, nothing's universal, but for them to do their own research, investigate, when I eat this, I feel like this, and to, understand what sugar and soda does to us, what gluten and sulfates, and all of that's so important uh, to our immune system and our neurosystem. And so um, I say if you can replace your most carb-filled animal fat meal, I tell them if you can replace your most fat-filled, I can't say it right. I tell them,
That's good.
sorry, I
That's
will
okay.
say, start with replacing your most animal fat-filled, carb-filled meal of the day with a green smoothie, with the AG1 smoothie. Then that's a good start. And again, just getting people to change one thing, that's a good place to start. And then to investigate, again, this is deeply personal, but their stress in their life. And,
Mm.
when I'm around these people, this happens to my body, to understand the somatic response to their triggers, I think is deeply important. But vision, this is where our job is fun, is pretty foundational. It's central nervous system. Our eyes are just movable brain. And if we can make the eyes better, we can make the person better. And that's the fun part of our job.
So if you can make the eyes better, you can make the person better. That's huge, right? I mean, that's the foundation of vision training for athletes, right? So
Mhm.
how did you get to this like mission for training athletes at your clinic? Because you started off with general practice and then you added some specialties. How did the sports component fit in?
Well, I have 3 children. Right now, they are 11, 8, and 6. So at the time, I think my oldest was 8, and my middle was 6, and my baby was 4. But, they were all just getting into sports and just being the nerd mom I am. I thought, how can I help them, hit a ball with a bat better? How can I help them catch better? Because, we observe our children and we take our nerdy eye stuff to, the table too. So observing my children and, batting practice, observing them learn how to throw and catch on a very primitive level. Little, I don't know if you've noticed with your children, teaching them how to catch when they're little is not easy.
No,
That
yeah, it's not.
so when my 8-year-old was big enough to, just work on the accommodation, work on the eye alignment, the foundational vision fundamentals, that
So
and then seeing the results, seeing them get better. That was
right. So you trained the foundation and you saw the results. So
right.
that helps like transfer it to other people. But so
Mhm.
you said he was 8, right? Is that when you started like really getting into sports vision and training foundation for him?
Right. I was talking there's 2 coaches here who helped me with my program. One is a hockey coach. His name's Cosmo Clark. That's why I'm in this hockey rink. Because
Oh, okay.
they had space in their rink downstairs. There was a clinic here before me, but he started asking me, these kids just aren't tracking very well. Why? We send them to their eye doctor to get their vision check, and they say, you're fine, you're 20/20, but why aren't they tracking well? And I said, well, there's this whole separate set of our industry that focuses on the way our eyes move, the way we localize things, the way that our eyes tell our body what to do. and how and so that's the kind of optometrist you would want to send them to. I don't do that, but you could probably, I can help you find someone. And Cosmo was like, well, why don't you help me? And I was like, Cosmo, I don't know anything about hockey. And he was, that's okay. And his kids that he privately trains, they were all over the country, at college, and he coaches for the Olympics. And so they were kind of all over. And he said, my kids are going to be home for Thanksgiving. Why don't you come do this vision clinic with us? And I said, they're going to think I'm so stupid, but sure. Because I've never done this hockey thing.
They're going to think you're doing hocus pocus.
Right. And so I got like some synaptic strobes. I got the synaptic synchrony. We did I think a heart chart and a tranoglyph. And, we just had 4 stations and about an hour, about 10 kids. And they were, big hockey bros. But what was eye-opening about that day was how challenging these vision exercises were for them. They're professional athletes, they're college athletes, but they hadn't really ever been through the neuro and vision side of things. And so they really enjoyed the clinic. They said it was really different.
Right.
And, so even though I was just kind of saying, figuring it out, and this is where the industry is interesting. The eye industry is interesting to me right now, is we have so much knowledge to offer and so much to help these athletes that there's not enough of us talking about binocular summation, about accommodation, about the flexibility of the system, the recovery of the system. All of that is so important, even on I don't have a vision therapy fellowship like you do, but the basic information that we have just from clinical experience in school, we have a lot to offer athletes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Even on a basic level.
So if we go back to, sorry to interrupt you, if we go back to those athletes who found it tough to do those activities, like, what does that mean? And how do you explain it to them that why this was tough for them to do?
At the time, I just, everybody knows enough now to know that screen time's kind of messing our eyes and brain up. So I said, we need to spend 2 to 3 hours less a day on your screens if possible. I chalk a lot of it up to our species unprecedented time of screen time. That has a lot to do with the stress on the system.
So I know how it affects it. I know you know how it affects it. But if you were to explain to like a layman person, like, how does screen time actually cause these muscles and these specifically the eye issues that make it harder to play a sport, or make it so it's not as well in tune to play like a sport like hockey?
They understand that our eyes have muscles. You and I have been in the eye industry so long, we forget how you and I have been in the eye industry for so long, we forget how important it is for us to talk in a way that people will understand. And athletes will understand there are muscles that do certain tasks, right? And so it does resonate with athletes and their parents that the muscles that focus our eyes far away and up close will spasm. They tend to understand the idea of panoramic vision versus, I use the word collapsed periphery a lot. And they seem to understand, the phone will collapse my periphery because I'm here. We're so tunnel vision that we, not just even far periphery, but even that mid periphery.
Yeah. So the 2 main ones, I guess, would be then the vision goes in and out more because we're just, our eyes are locked on the screen.
Yeah.
And then
I understand the word spasm.
Okay, spasm. So they can't control the relaxation and focus of their system. And then the other one is the periphery, meaning their side vision is just not as good. So they're more tunneled. Right. So for a sport like hockey, I mean, that's huge, right?
Well, I understand that, and I don't play hockey. If somebody out there says I'm saying things wrong, please leave it in the comments. But I understand that hockey players need to learn how to quiet their vision and head by keeping it up, and to learn how to use their peripheral visual space to, do their stick handling. And so that's probably been the biggest goal with my hockey players, is to open the periphery and integrate the periphery with the central vision as best as possible. And they understand that, like, a big goal of theirs is to keep their head up.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. When is a good time, like, because you started your son at 8 years old, when would you say is a good time to start training those foundations for someone who, the family is ready to get them into sports, and they know that this kid is like super competitive and wants to play this sport and enjoys it? When would be the time that you recommend, like, let's start foundationally training these skills so they don't hold them back in the future?
8's a little young. You don't want to, you want them to have fun, right? I think 8 to 10 is a good time to, of course, decrease their screen time and start good screen time habits, make sure they spend time outside. And we just need to be doing that as a society anyway. I did vision training with my kids, but some kids, you don't want them to get in their head too much. We don't want to mess up that flow state. We don't want to mess up that no mind space. And they're just an important part of younger youth sports, is that they have fun and that they're not overthinking it too much. They need to, and their prefrontal cortex isn't developed enough to really, you don't want them to think too much. And so I think an important place to start with a healthy 8-year-old is just decrease the screen time. They can exercises, but again, and every kid's different, but I just don't want them to get too neurotic about how competitive they are too young.
Are you seeing that in that age group where there's a lot of pressure to become elite at 10 years old?
Oh gosh. Here in Dallas, it's ridiculous.
What do you notice?
The parents, more than anything. They'll kind of coach their kids during the exam. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when they're nervous, they don't see as well. And whether it's a visual attention thing, or if their body's in threat mode and they the energy just doesn't go towards good eye movements. But there's been a couple of times, a dad will be kind of barking at his kid throughout I was doing a just noticeable difference test the other day. So I put the lens in front of his eye and I said, which direction did the letter move? And his dad was just kind of in his face the whole time and just kind of criticizing him for being slow or asking a question. And I finally said, Dad, you can leave. He's going to do better if he's relaxed. And this is not helping. I know you think you're helping, but you're not. Thank you. And when he didn't leave, but he calmed down. And I looked at the kid and I said, you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. How old was the kid?
9.
Yeah, oh, that's young. Yeah.
And so I said, let's try again. And you're doing a really good job. And he went from seeing 5 diopters of movement to a half.
Wow.
And so he could see a smaller movement. And that's all sports is how small can I define the movement and how quick can I define it? All vision is, all sports is localizing things.
Right.
Where is the ball and where do I need to put my body in relation to the ball? So that's why I do that test. But my point of the story is that kid saw better when he was relaxed.
Right.
And
so it sounds like, when we were talking earlier, we were talking about the gut health, and you mentioned like having your patients feel what happens inside their body when they eat certain things, or even in this fact, what happens when they make certain eye movements, so they're just getting in tune with their body. So it seems like you focus a lot on getting that system and the body in tune, so they're more aware of what their body needs to do to create the right action.
Exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Good job.
Thank you. So I know you do a lot of gaze tracking, and I love all your gaze tracking videos. But for someone who, let's say, is watching that and saying, okay, I don't have access to a gaze tracker technology, how would they use some of those principles to help themselves from making, let's say, a quieter eye, or making it so they don't have these jumpy eye movements, or have a better feedback system so they're looking at what they should be looking at?
First off, it is accessible. I have a remote program.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Do you mind sharing it?
The link, or
I'll share the link for you. If you don't
Yeah.
mind just talking a little bit about it and how it works.
So we use this eye tracking technology. It's so basically you put the glasses on. There's no lenses in them. They're just basically a frame. And there's there's three cameras, one that points out to the world, and then two cameras that point to your eyes. And when those are superimposed, what you see on the on the final outcome is where you're looking and when you're looking there. And it's a very context dependent test. You know, they can wear the trackers while they're doing their task in their sport, whether it's hitting or pitching or fielding, different types of fielding, grounders, pop flies, line drives. In hockey, it helps with understanding if, building awareness on if they are keeping their head up, and again, how quiet their eyes are versus how erratic they are. Goalie work, how deep they track, the quiet eye, how early they start their fixation on their target. Do they keep their fixation on their target through the action? And then how late do they offset their fixation? And those are all from Joan Vicker's studies on quiet eye. She actually helped me with my program quite a bit.
Oh, wonderful.
She didn't do baseball. I asked her, why didn't you study baseball? It's like the most visual sport. And she said, I'm Canadian. I don't like baseball. But but she did a lot of golf and hockey studies and some basketball.
Okay. Yeah, I saw her. It was a free throw study that I remember she did. I remember that one. And I remember it was golf, and it was for putting and for hitting, I believe, right? Like making a swing.
Right. But so applying that to, so far baseball has been really fruitful. It's been really fun. What we do for the remote program, say you're in California and I'm in Dallas, is we can send the trackers to you. We can mail them. We do 2-day shipping, and you take your footage for different tasks. The baseball program is hitting, pitching, and fielding. The basketball program is mostly free throws, but we'll do jump shots and outside shots and layups. I don't have a ball handling program. I thought about that, but I haven't designed that one quite yet. The golf program is for drives and for putting. What else? The other one? Tennis. So forehands, backhands, volleys, and serves. Do you watch the ball to the strings?
Yeah.
And,
so what do you see? Because you probably collected a lot of data now with all this gaze tracking. What do you notice between like someone who's an elite player versus someone who's more just an average player? What's the difference in these gaze tracking numbers and data?
The elite players are more quiet. Their eyes aren't darting all over the place. They have a visual approach. Even if they don't realize it, they adapt. Even if they don't realize it, they evolved on their own, without trainers like you and me. It depends on the task. Like golf, they say they're putting, they'll start their fixation on a consistent part of the ball early. They'll keep their fixation on that spot through the action, through the rotation, and then they'll they won't follow the ball. They'll keep their eyes down after the putt. The studies show that their duration of fixation is about 62% longer than the non-professional player.
Wow. So the pro player stays on the ball 62% longer, meaning their eyes stay fixated on the ball 62% longer.
Mm-hmm.
That's
According
huge.
to Dr. Vicker's studies. And
Yeah.
so taking those studies and creating a program that is deliverable to a 12-year-old, that's the whole gaze behavior program. And for them, these kids will, a lot of kids know enough, not all of them, but a lot of kids know to keep their eyes down and to say they're hitting a ball with a bat. A lot of kids know I need to watch the ball hit the bat. All right, let's try. And they think they're doing it, but they're not.
Yeah, that's the key, right? They haven't built what you mentioned. They haven't built that internal awareness. So this is how you can figure it out, right? So you put the gaze tracker on, you see objectively, this is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a disconnect between what they think they're doing and what they're actually doing.
So it's the closest thing to biofeedback that we can do. Unfortunately, the biofeedback's not in real time, but they can look at the footage and, the video doesn't lie.
Right.
Do you see what you did just there? So for kids, that's what I generally do, is help them see that they're not tracking the ball all the way to the bat. We do have drills that we provide to make that, to help them build that skill. But honestly, building awareness is half the solution.
Right.
I put them on myself for my tennis drills a few weeks ago, and I could have sworn I watched the ball to the strings, but I don't.
That's right. And that's someone who does vision training like every day with other people.
Right. Like I was just like thinking my video would turn out so great. No, I lives at about 3 feet ahead of the racket. And
oh my God.
So now serves, I was okay. But my in volleys, I was okay. But my forehand and backhand, I was definitely not watching it deep.
Right.
So, and then as my personal experience with my own program is the next drill, I made an exaggerated effort to watch the ball to the strings, and it felt weird. It did not feel natural. It felt natural after a couple of, intense sessions. So you can build that skill, but even on a very personal level, it's interesting to see how we're not doing what we think we're doing.
Right. And do you get that a lot where you have to coach the athlete through not only the drill and doing the drill, but more so the mental mindset of this will feel unnatural and you will want to revert back to how you normally do things. But if you really want to improve, you have to go through this weird, unnatural phase.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So my basic program, and I don't know what your experience is with this. I have a zero cost program I just have on my website, and all it is heart chart, big chart, little chart. It's tranoglyphs. It's a peripheral chart and vestibular ocular reflex. I felt like those were the easiest skills to build that didn't require a lot of technology, that we could reach more people with, more kids.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're not always going to be able to come in and work on our DynaVisions and neuro trackers and sensory. They're not all going to, buy the strobes. But to reach as many kids for as little money as possible, I just kind of put on a free program. And
so could parents use that to be like this could be one way parents could tell if these were very hard, that maybe they need a full evaluation, or maybe there's a neurovisual issue?
Yes, it's been a great screener.
Okay.
Like if the kid, and part of my PowerPoint presentation on there is, if this is hard for you, or if it takes you 30 minutes to do it, you need to go find someone on, like I put the ISFO website, find a vision doctor who can help, or just search vision therapy for me.
Yeah. Do you mind telling us what IFSA is?
The International Sports Vision Association, that their website has a list of professionals that
So
do what we
it's
do.
basically a site of sports vision doctors who specialize in sport performance with
Mhm.
neurovisual skill training, right? Which both of us are part of. I just wanted to leave it out there
Oh,
in
that's smart.
case other people wanted to search it.
Mhm.
So if you go on the website, you can actually I believe you can put your zip code and find someone nearby, and they can help you. And you're always welcome to reach out to myself or Dr. Bailey, and we can always do, virtual training with you, like her program with the gaze tracker, because nowadays you could reach anybody from anywhere.
Ah, cool.
That's the benefit of technology.
Yeah, I've sent a few people just who follow me all over the country on social media to that website, and there's not always somebody near them.
Yeah.
The next step probably is to search vision therapy near me, and then remote with one of us would be great. But to answer your
And
original question, when you do a heart chart, for example, a little chart, big chart, you can just mindlessly do the chart and it's going to do some good.
yeah,
If you make a special effort to be consciously aware of this is how it feels when I localize that letter, when I put my accommodation on that letter over there, and then I put my accommodation on this letter here, and the growth will happen faster if you have a cognitive override on this is how it feels. Here's the somatic response to this exercise. I'll remember that when I'm hitting a ball with a bat. I'll remember that when I feel like it just accelerates their improvement.
I really like that. Can we break it down a little bit? So you mentioned the somatic response. So let's say we're taking them now on the field and they're replicating the near far heart chart. So they're looking at something up close. Now they're looking at something far. They're on the plate. They're ready to hit. Now, how does that translate to when they're hitting?
And not every kid gets this. I try to explain vision is not something that happens to us. Vision is something that we do. It's a motor activity. It's not sensory.
Mm-hmm.
It's motor. I'm putting my accommodation on my picture over there. Now I'm putting my accommodation back here on the screen. Like, you put your vision in places. And when you put your vision in places, you make better motor command on the ball. Like, our body will go where our eyes and mind tell it to go. For example, when I hit with my son in our cage, if he's rolling over a lot of balls, I'll say, why don't you try looking under the ball a little bit? And
Okay.
maybe that'll help offset you rolling over it. And it doesn't work every time, but much of the time he'll barrel better. And so to answer your question, to be aware of the somatic response of what we're doing, like the motor part of our eyes, what you do with them.
Right. How to feel, how to engage them correctly.
Right.
Which is all back to your foundational concept of internal awareness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the part that if we can just give somebody internal awareness, I feel like that would be the magic wand thing I would do, is go around and just give people internal awareness. And that would improve every facet of their life, right?
Well, and then you can recalibrate.
Right.
Now
Because if you don't know what you're making a mistake on, like, how are you supposed to fix it?
You make the mistake. Yeah, we don't want to fail over and over again, but where failure can be part of the growth is if you identify what that failure is, why it happened, and recalibrate. That's a Hall of Famer. Those are the ones who will be great.
Oh, that's an amazing statement. So an elite athlete or a Hall of Famer would be someone who can take in information, make a mistake, but then calibrate and then prevent the mistake further down the road so they can learn quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all this, all vision therapy is to increase the conditions for learning. And to increase the conditions to recover.
Yeah, it's like teaching a man how to fish. And we're not just giving you the fish. You have to do the work, and you have to learn what your body needs to do to actually get a fish.
And
If
again,
that makes sense.
well, and a lot of these kids don't have the maturity to do that. That's a deeply personal activity to register. This is how my body feels when I do this.
Right.
But even if they just are doing the exercises because their mom and dad make them, their eyes will learn how to learn.
Right.
There's some subconscious stuff going on. This is central nervous system. Our vision takes up half our brain. We're exercising cranial nerves 2, 3, 4, and 6. So even if we just get those to fire,
Yeah.
that's better than nothing. I tell the kids who I can tell don't want to do it, I'll say, even if you don't believe in the program, it's going to work. So just put the time in, give it 8 weeks, and we'll, reevaluate. But the ones who do it 8 weeks, I have a 100% satisfaction rate. Everybody's happy. It's the ones who don't see the benefits after, 3 or 4 weeks and they give up. They're the ones not happy. But you have to keep,
Right.
just like working out, like Pilates, like weightlifting, it's exercises. We're making changes in the brain that takes time. It's
Yeah.
very organic. There's a lot of gizmos out there, a lot of technology.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of new, organic exercises that we can do to change our brain. And that's what's fun about the program, is that it's, you feel things happening.
Yeah,
And
you're basically, you're in neurogenesis, right? You're creating these new brain pathways to teach your body, brain, and eyes to create a better, more efficient system that will react and respond accordingly, right? But it takes time. You can't make brain pathways in 30 minutes.
yeah, a kid will, little, ages 8 to 12, they'll change quicker.
Hmm.
They have that neuroplasticity, but I have 35-year-olds who changed pretty quick. And it's just fun to see the results of that, how it translates to the field.
Yeah, it's amazing. Let's change gears a little bit. I know you do a lot of baseball, so I wanted to ask you, we have a lot of catchers and hitters in our training program, and I know what we do, but I'm kind of curious to pick your brain. How do you train them different? Because, every position has certain neurovisual skills that have different requirements. They need certain skills a little bit more than others. So how do you train those positions differently, or do you train them the same?
They're a little different. Their gaze posture is different. A hitter's gonna, if they're right-handed, they're gonna be looking to their left, unless they are good about pointing both eyes to their pitcher, which a lot of, we're trying to teach them, put your chin over your shoulder.
So what happens if you don't do that? Because I know coaches say that all the time. Turn your head, turn your head. But for an athlete listening to this, if you're not doing that, what happens, and why do we need to do that from a vision standpoint?
Well, and it's not easy for a lot of these athletes. It can mess up your scapula. It can mess up a lot of other things. So not everybody's flexible enough to put their chin over their shoulder, and they can either get the flexibility to do it.
So
they can open their stance up, but
Right.
that's me. I don't want to mess their mechanics up.
Okay, so you don't mess with their mechanics. But how do you? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'll say, tinker with it, but again, their mechanics are deeply personal, and
Yeah.
so I don't know enough about swing to get into the nuances of all of that. But I say, here's a suggestion: tinker with it and see what you think.
Right, test it out.
But their bodies are still largely facing, straight when the ball is to their left or to their right. They're in a different gaze posture. They're in a different, crouching spot versus their stance. It's a completely different activity
Right.
coming at them from the side. And Hitting is unique because there's a convergent task and a divergent task. The ball is coming at them, but they're trying to project it away from them in a very strong, precise way. Their timing has to be 100%.
Can you explain what convergent and divergent means?
Yes, sorry, that was a optometry lesson. Convergence is what your eyes do. They come together when things are approaching you.
So like a ball coming towards you, would you be converging?
Yes, you should be. And then divergent is projecting something away from you, whether it's hitting or throwing, things like
So
that.
if you're hitting, when do you diverge? Is that at the impact when you hit the ball, or is that even prior when you're trying to look at the pitcher?
Both.
Okay, so you're constantly changing between those two movements, so they need to be very flexible.
Building flexibility is a really big part of my program. Flexibility in the accommodation and flexibility in their eye alignment.
Do you mind explaining what accommodation is and how that comes into play when you're, let's say, batting again?
Accommodation is the ability to change focus in the Z axis, far away and up close.
Okay.
So we track left and right, up and down, but also in and out. We're getting into algebra. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. There's a lot into it hitting a ball.
Right. And accommodation, each individual eye has a ciliary body. They're muscles that move your vision in a certain spot, far away and up close. And those muscles need to be strong and those muscles need to be flexible. And accommodation is foundational to eye alignment. And that's why it's so important that we get it right. And accommodation is what's getting shot with this prolonged screen time epidemic we have going on. And so it's thankfully a very common diagnosis, and it's also thankfully a very fixable problem with work, with effort. But so accommodation is the ability to change focus far away and up close. The reason
sorry, I just keep interrupting you today.
I keep talking. You need a safe word that tells me to shut my mouth.
So I'm just thinking, right? I'm thinking and visualizing a child who has gone through your training program, has amazing accommodation, is super strong, super flexible. And then they go home and they're doing 3 hours of screen time after a game, or 6 hours of screen time at school. How does that affect them going forward? Like, does that negate your vision training?
I have found that with my own children and with my athletes, once we get the accommodation right with intense, 3 days a week for 8 weeks, just one heart chart, one with the right eye, one with the left eye, one with both eyes together. If we can do that for 8 weeks, there's pretty permanent change. They can handle the stress of screen time because screens aren't going anywhere.
Right. So, I mean, this is a totally wayward tangent, but if we have so many kids that are doing these new tasks that our body wasn't built for, would you think that everyone needs to get trained on accommodation and focusing? Or how would you address that? Like if let's say the school system was talking to you about, we have to do screen time 4 to 6 hours a day because all our curriculum is on a Chromebook or a laptop. Mm-hmm. What would you recommend as a best practice for these kids for long term, for it not to affect their eyes? What would you recommend?
My favorite's heart chart.
Okay, so you'd recommend everyone to go through that training so that way the screen time wouldn't affect those muscles as much?
I like big chart, little chart better than flippers, but
okay.
Flippers is plan B. So accommodative flippers, minus plus to tense the focusing system, relax the focusing system, and to see how many cycles you can get per minute. Accommodative facilities.
Right. So you're making the muscles stronger and more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Quick. Cranial nerve 3.
Okay.
And that's so much more than accommodation. That'll fire cranial nerve 4 and 6 as well. They're all interconnected. So when you make all of them healthier, it's the sum is greater than its parts. One
Yeah.
plus one is greater than 2. And so accommodation is probably the most foundational skill, that and central peripheral integration. Because if
Okay.
they can't do those 2 things, they can't track.
And those are both things that the cell phone is killing.
Right. So
Right? That's amazing.
with the cell phone being a daily tool, we need it.
Yeah.
The cell phone has more information on it than the Harvard Library. It's a
Oh, yeah.
wonderful tool. We need to use it, but we just can't let it take over our lives with the endless flipping through TikTok and social media. That's where we get that's where it's a drug, and we need to know what the
So,
algorithm's doing to our brains so we don't let it take over.
so you're saying the dopamine, obviously, a dopamine hit, but also
Mhm.
like the more of the mindless scrolling. You're saying if you're actually doing something like homework related, or you're doing something that has a benefit where you're learning, that's okay. But if you're just mindlessly scrolling, that's where you notice most of the issues.
And we
Okay.
can handle that stress better if the oculomotor system's right.
Having the stronger muscles and more flexible system, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's less sensitivity. It's widening the bowling alley.
Right.
It's allowing us to have more room, more wiggle room.
So something I was curious about was, you've been doing this a long time now, and there's probably something that you first were doing, the first, let's say 5, 6 years of practice with some of your athletes that now you probably have changed your mind on. Is there anything that you've changed your mind or done something differently now that you weren't doing before, or that you did before and you aren't doing now?
Well, this is just me. I know a lot of people do well with Brock string. I don't do much Brock string. I'll use it to diagnose, down gaze versus primary gaze versus up. Like if a kid's coming in and say, I'm doing great with my grounders, but not my pop flies.
Okay.
I feel like a Brock string's good to diagnose, but I don't use it in training as much, but I know a lot of us do.
So if we just break that down a little bit, um, so Brock string is an alignment tool, right? You have the beads and the string. So if we have someone who has trouble looking down and grabbing a ball that's coming towards them, you use that to check their alignment. So if their alignment is off, then their depth perception would be off. Would that be correct?
That and their recovery and their
Okay.
ability to track the ball, say it's a grounder all the way to the glove,
Okay.
that their eyes don't give up on them.
Okay.
Hitting, we'll check Brock string and left gaze if they're a right-handed hitter versus primary gaze. So
And if their alignment is off when they hit, what happens? Like, what do you tend to see?
just visual noise. See if I can find a kid's text. Their words are they just don't freaking see the ball. Like they just use it. And what our job is, and where I feel like a lot of people who do what we do help out,
Mm-hmm.
we need to remember they don't want an optometry lesson.
Right.
We need to this is not our turf. This is their turf.
Right.
We need to see how we can communicate with them as best we can to help them understand why this is important. So one, that they do it. Let's see what they say. Eyes couldn't track it. Anticipating a curveball and the eyes twitched as I swung the bat. Like that's how an athlete would say it. I just couldn't
Right.
see the explicit ball.
Right.
Here's a guy with a left-handed hitter on the mound, and that angle's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, his eyes completely looked off the ball when that one came at him. Just completely look off, like their eyes literally, like there's a visual noise going on.
Right.
No
So
idea.
because the alignment is off, both eyes are not working perfectly in sync together, then they can't track it, right? So
Right.
you
And
need both eyes working together.
oh my goodness, binocular summation in the brain is so important. There was a neurology study where, not optometry, not ophthalmology, but a neurology study that, and I don't know exactly what it is. I can find it for you if you need a link. But if you were to take one unit of measurement of vision that translates to real life, it's not visual acuity. How small of a black letter can you see on a white screen? It's stereo acuity. How well your eyes summate information in the brain. Binocular summation is hardly 1 + 1 = 2. It's, there's so much more information when the eyes are working together. And when they're not working together, it's chaotic.
Right.
And so to get them to working together to create order in the chaos, that's more than vision. That's where we're changing the person.
Right. So would this be a good summary that binocular summation is what allows us to see 3D? And without it, we see more in 2D, and we might not be aligned to the target correctly.
Right.
Okay. So
3D, we need to see things in X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And not just see it in real time, but to anticipate where it's going to go.
Right. And that information is so useful because, right, the eyes tell the brain roughly where the ball is, and the brain anticipates based on the speed, acceleration, velocity, all of that stuff, where it's going to end up. So it's crazy how there's so much in this little processor that it has to do just to figure out where the ball's going to go. Like for you in tennis, right? Like that's a complex skill just to figure out where the ball's going to be.
There's, the subconscious stuff. There's so much more than what we think is going on in our brains. But
It's an amazing organ.
Well, and it's not just eyes. We're not exercising the eyes per se. We're exercising the brain through the eyes.
Right. That's a good way to put it. We're exercising the brain through the eyes. I like that.
Did you take Bob Sanet's course?
Yeah, I love everything he does.
I got that from him.
Yeah. I felt like I have heard that somewhere.
That's where you heard it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want people to, be able to contact you. So I'm going to put the link down below for your socials and where they can contact you. But if you don't mind just sharing really quick, what's the easiest way that people can find you?
You can Google Sports Vision Institute. I think I'm the only one that's named that. My social media handles, you can add to the bottom of the podcast. I can give you an email.
Okay, perfect. I will add all of that. Do you mind if I put the email down below, or would you rather not?
No, put the email in there.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that. Yeah.
We want people to reach out to us for the program.
Yeah. There's not a lot of people who are doing this. And I think first thing is awareness, right? If we go back to awareness, a lot of people don't even know that this exists. And so even if they wanted the help, they don't know where to get it. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy with all your clinics. So I really appreciate you taking the time to, one, share your knowledge and then spend time with me. And I hope we'll do it again one day.
Well, thank you for your time and for reaching out. It was fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care.
Yes, sir. Bye.